Good morning. My name is Eli Howes. Can you please tell me your full name?
My full name is Mei Liu.
Okay, May, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about what you do. Do you work or are you a student?
I work as an English teacher right now, and I mainly teach high school students.
Right. And what do you like most about your work?
Well, the thing I enjoy most is that I can help students to improve their oral English, which makes me have a good sense of achievement because every time I saw them improving their scores, I find I'm doing something very useful. And besides, I think it's a really great way to get to know different kinds of people.
Do you think you will continue this work in the future?
Actually, I have a second thought about that. Um, because my major was not English teaching before, and I'm not sure I'm I will still choose this as my future, like my future calling.
Mm,
So I'm not sure.
mhm. Let's move on. Let's talk about singing. Do you like singing?
Mm, Well, I'm not a big fan of singing, but I do go to karaoke when I did go to karaoke when I was in high school. After I graduated from university, I didn't sing that much with my friends as before.
Mm. And have you ever learned how to sing?
Yes, in my primary school and junior school, we have music classes, and in those classes, we would learn how to sing some popular songs, and the teacher will teach us how to sing it.
Mm. Um, if you sing, who would you sing in front of? Or who do you like to sing in front of? More friends or family, for example?
I think maybe friends more. I because when I go out with my friend to karaoke, I think I'm the one who sing in front of them. And like in a family reunion, we just usually have like lunch or dinner together and maybe watch TV together. Not that much. We will like sing together.
Mm. Do you think that singing can bring happiness to people?
Mm, Yes, for some people, I think so, because music is like universal language, and when you hear some light music or and some cheerful music, I think it definitely can cheer people up, especially those people who in a bad mood or in a who are really down.
Mm. Let's move on. Let's talk about public transport. What
Mhm.
kind of public transport do you usually take?
Um, I often take subway uh, and bus as the transport, and sometimes from time to time I might walk to the places I'm going to if that's within like 30 minutes work.
Mm. Did you take public transport when you were a child?
Sure. Yes, definitely. When I was a child, I usually took bus to my school, and it took me maybe 30 minutes to get to my school. And since my hometown is really small and we don't have subway, bus was kind of like the only option for me.
Mm. Um, do most people in your country prefer public transport or private transport?
Uh, I think most of the people prefer private transport nowadays, because Chinese economy develops really fast these few years, and everyone has their own cars, so they normally drive to their workplace. So I think they use private transport more than before.
Hmm. Okay, May, I'm going to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say and you can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, remember you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
I'd like to talk about a person who is from a different culture. His name is Jose, and he is from Chile. I knew him back in 2019 when I was having a road trip in Australia. I remembered it was like in the summer, and I decided to go to the northern part of Australia from the south. And then I saw this post on Facebook, and he was looking for travel mates. So I decided to go to the road trip with him. So my first impression of him is that he is a really lively person, because he just keep talking with me, keep chatting with me. And I also feel like he's someone who is full of energy, because uh, when we were having the road trip, uh, he was the driver and I was sitting next to him. And even he was driving, he never felt exhausted, and he always came up with those brilliant games to kill the burden of our road trip, because sometimes the distance could be really long and we spend a quite long time in the car. And another thing special about him is that he will always be in the spotlight when we met different people from other countries in a carnival park, and he always tries to lift up the
Thank you.
atmosphere.
Do you think you'll spend more time with Jose in the future?
Sorry?
Do you think you'll spend more time with Jose or Jose in the future?
Um, actually, I haven't talked with him for like 3 years, so I don't think so. But I'm definitely gonna visit him if I go to Chile.
Okay, thank you. Right, we're going to move on to part three, and in this part, I'm going to ask you some more general questions related to the same theme as part two. So let's first of all talk about learning about a new culture. So I guess you've been to Australia, you've lived there.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to somebody on moving to a new country and becoming familiar with a new culture?
So you mean the suggestion I would give to others?
Yeah.
Yeah. Firstly, I think they might want to look up the customs and culture in a book. For example, Lonely Planet is a great guidebook for going to another country to visit. Another thing I think, when they get to that foreign country, they can try to speak with the locals more often, and so that they can know what's the real culture like and get immersed in that culture.
Mm. Some people feel shy about speaking to foreigners, especially in a foreign language. Why do
Mhm.
you think that is?
The biggest reason I can come up with is that they feel they are afraid of making mistakes,
Mm.
and For some people, especially like in our culture, making mistakes sometimes could be really embarrassed, especially in front of lots of people. So that's one of the reason. Another reason, I think, it might be, they might be awkward if they don't know like what the customer is, and they just try to avoid to getting to know those customs. For example, if in some cultures they might bow to show respect, and in some culture they just shake hands, and some culture they kiss in the face. So there are different customs, and they try to avoid those awkward moments. Yeah.
Mm. What kind of customs and traditions do you think it would be important for someone moving to China to get used to? So, for example, someone from the UK or from the US moving to China.
Mm, I think maybe first of all, they can, as I said before, they can look up some customers, like especially our customers in festivals, and maybe try to behave like what we do in those festivals. For example, in Spring Festival, we gave lucky money to child, and we also watched the Spring Festival Gala together as a family. So you can get to know, you can look up this festival traditions first.
Mm.
And other advice I can give is that try to not drink too much baijiu. It's kind of like traditional alcohol in China. It's a liquor which is really, really strong. And I do not recommend you doing that, like drink it a lot, because you might feel really awful the next day you wake up. Yeah.
Very good advice. For anyone considering moving to China, definitely don't drink too much baijiu when you arrive.
Yes.
Let's move on. Let's talk a bit about learning languages.
Mhm.
Um, Now, some people are worried that languages like English or Chinese or Spanish are becoming too big, and other smaller languages, or I should say Mandarin rather than Chinese. So Mandarin, Spanish, and English are becoming too big, and other smaller languages are disappearing. What do you think
Mhm.
about that?
Wow. I think for those bigger language like Chinese or Spanish, their popularity can be good to some extent, because people can communicate with each other rather than just English. They can use maybe sometimes in someday maybe in Spanish or in Chinese. So their popularity can be good to some extent. But I think it's also important to protect or preserve those other language that are less used, because sometimes language involves the culture of an area. Uh, if you try to protect the language, that means you might try to protect the culture of that area. And I know a lot of English culture through learning English. So I think if we want to have have a word with more diversity, we should not neglect the importance of those language that are less spoken.
Mm. And whose responsibility is it? Is it the government's responsibility or individuals' responsibility to make sure that these smaller languages don't become neglected?
I think both. For individuals, I think they could for first of all, they can raise their awareness to protect that language. They can try to teach their child or children their language or their dialect to preserve it. And for the government, I think, because sometimes it takes money to preserve a language. You might need to have people to record the language and try to keep it on the database. So that needs money, and the government could provide funds and some other essential help to protect those languages.
Okay, thank you very much, May. That is the end of the speaking test.
Okay.
Very good. How was that?
Uh, there was 1 second, I forgot the part two, like the last bullet point. I was like, I thought I remembered, and then I keep talking, and I kind of forget last bullet point. And
Right,
in some of the questions, like I kind of get a little bit nervous. I forgot what did you ask?
right. That's funny that people do say that sometimes happens. Like
Yes,
in the actual moment, they kind of forget what the question was, and they go, "Oh," they start answering, and they go, "What was the question?"
yes, yes.
But remember, it is
Especially like
fun.
you are getting a little bit nervous, and then we're like, oh, am I answering the right question?
Yeah, but don't worry. If you do forget the question, you can always kind of make a bit of a joke about it. You can always say, "Wait a second, I've forgotten the question. What was it again?" Like you can say that to the examiner. They won't mark you down. They'll just repeat the
Oh,
question for
okay.
you. If anything, they might find it quite amusing. It's totally
Oh,
fine
okay.
to ask them to repeat the
Yeah,
question.
okay.
Mm.
But can you notice that I forgot the question? Like, did you notice some of my answer might not on the topic?
Did it have no, no, your answers were definitely on topic. Did
Oh,
it happen in part 1 or in part 3?
I think part three,
Part 3.
maybe part
Wow,
three.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so there was one moment where I asked a bit about, so now I'm forgetting. I asked you a question about, how people can learn about the culture and about Chinese culture. No, no, I asked you what would people find difficult about Chinese culture moving to China, and you told me how they can learn about Chinese culture.
Oh, yes,
That was the
yes.
only time that it was slightly off topic, but like we were still talking about culture and we were still talking about language and China, so it still made sense.
Because I was like thinking of the first point, and then tried to expand it, and then I was thinking, and is he asked the question
Yeah,
about learning Chinese customs?
yeah, and you could always say that. Hey, wait a second, I can't remember. Were you asking me about how to learn Chinese culture or what people find difficult about Chinese culture? You could always clarify that with the examiner.
Oh, okay.
That's totally fine. It's meant to be kind of a dialogue like that. You're obviously
Oh,
not
okay.
meant to say, "And what do you think?" to the examiner, but you can ask them to repeat the question. That's totally fine.
Okay.
So you've done the IELTS test before. You did it a long time ago. You're getting ready to do it again. This test, you'd be getting 7.5, which you've got before, right? You've got 7.5 in the past,
Mhm.
and you're kind of aiming for that 7.5, potentially 8 as well.
Mhm.
Um, and um, and I think you're definitely capable of 8. You're so I tell you, you'd get 8, in my opinion, for fluency and coherence, which is your ability to talk at length, to organize your ideas, because you use so many good discourse markers. You really comprehensively answer all of the questions. You look at the answers and from multiple. Look at the questions from multiple perspectives as well. Your part 3 questions are really well developed, and you can clearly talk at length about any topic. So you'd be getting
Mhm.
8 for fluency and coherence. You'd also be getting 8 for pronunciation. Your pronunciation is incredibly clear, incredibly clear. It's really
Thanks.
easy to understand you, and you've also got loads of nice nice sentence stress where you say like I'm not sure. So like emphasis on the sure. Like there's lots of really native like pronunciation features that you've probably developed as a result of living in Australia for a long time. Um, and then for you'd be getting the 7 in this test for grammatical range and accuracy and for lexical resource. And I think you could definitely be getting band 8 for those. but you need to work on your accuracy. Your range is band 8 level, but
Mhm.
sometimes you make small mistakes that would be kind of band 7
Mm.
level mistakes. Um, so what I'll do is in a chat box, I'm going to just like put down some of the notes for each part. So can you see this in the chat
Yeah.
box?
Wow, that's a lot of notes.
Okay, well that's actually just part one. So I was
Uh-huh.
kind of typing away. So I really like things like I mainly teach teenagers. So I mainly teach. There's a nice collocation there. Oral English, very nice. A good sense of achievement, very nice. You did say every time I saw them, but with every time you were usually talking about the present. So every time I
With
see them.
sense. Mm.
If you were talking about the past, because you used to teach them, you'd probably say whenever I saw them. So whenever I
Okay.
saw them, my heart would be filled with joy. But
Mm.
now, every time I see them, I get a great sense of achievement.
Mm.
Um, I also liked. Sorry, another thing. I'm not sure I will. I would just change to whether I will. So I'm not sure I will, whether I will. I
Mhm.
like that you were referring to teaching as your calling, like your calling in life. Very nice idiomatic phrase. That's going to be the kind of language because you used it appropriately. That's going to help you get band 8 for lexical resource.
Mhm.
I like phrases like big fan of singing. Again, yeah, big fan of, and then gerund or a noun. Very nice. And then you said this: we have singing classes in school, but of course, school was in the past, so it should be we had singing classes
Mm.
at school. And I remember from my time in China that it's quite common that people will struggle between the present and the past simple. Um,
Mhm.
for you, because you're kind of looking at getting that kind of band 7.5, band 8, that's something that you really need to get right in your test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when you talk, you kind of like forget all the grammatic rules, and then. But I've told someone told me like you can correct it after you notice it,
Totally.
but it's just sometimes I can notice
Yeah.
when I was speaking. Yeah, and
Yeah.
how can I like improve this like little like mistakes because sometimes they are so little and you kind of like just let it go every time and then it
Yeah.
shows up again
That's true.
next time.
So that's a process called fossilization, which is when you make
Mhm.
a little mistake over a long period of time, and then it all becomes kind of integral to you,
Yeah.
and it's a hard thing to change. Um, I mean, one of the best ways to change it is to have somebody who's very good at noticing when you make the mistake and
Mhm.
will point it out to you. So, for example, if you were to have a regular speaking teacher, then every time, so for example, if I were your regular teacher, every
Mhm.
time you use the present simple instead of the past simple, I go, oi, and then you would quickly change it. And oi, and then you quickly change it. And just over time, and then eventually you won't even need me to go, oi, because you won't make that mistake anymore.
Okay. But would I get like I got really upset every time I got oi and then I kind of lose like confidence in saying that grammar or speaking that grammar. It could
Sure,
be that too.
and that would happen. That probably would happen. And then eventually, so it would happen. You'd lose motivation. You probably become worse. So if you imagine this is your English level, it start getting worse because you're losing fluency because you're focusing on
Mhm.
accuracy. And
Yeah.
eventually, you'll start getting more fluent, more confident, and then your language will be at a higher level than it was
Mm.
before because you'll have your previous fluency and your new advanced accuracy.
Oh, so it's like the moment you have to been through if you want to go higher place. Like you have to be down.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, not necessarily, but that is what I've seen that happen to many people. It's like
Okay.
they start regular classes with a strict teacher who focuses on the
Mhm.
accuracy, and they
Mhm.
for like maybe even for 1 month they get worse at English. You know, because
Yeah.
they start to think about everything they say, and they go, I can't think naturally anymore. But then eventually, in 2 months' time, then they're speaking the best they've ever spoken in their life.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Because when I was a teacher, I tend not to like correct the students' mistakes like right away.
Mm.
I will always like also give them the correction after they speak it because they normally get really embarrassed when you like correct them right away. Yeah,
Well,
maybe I
that's
need someone to do this for to me.
yeah. I think so. There's a slight difference there in the sense that you were teaching younger teenagers in a group, right? So they're
Yeah.
probably a little bit more embarrassed and they don't have the same kind of confidence and they're at a lower level. Whereas your
Mm,
level of English is very, very high and you're not a teenager and you're not so self-conscious. And you're really interested in getting your English to the best possible ability. So for
yeah.
you, it would be something that I think would be useful for you.
Yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, maybe for example, if I were teaching lots of teenagers in a big class, I probably wouldn't correct them so much. What I would
Mm,
maybe do is write down their mistakes on the board, and then collectively we can work out what the correct answer is, rather than
mhm.
say, "Oh, you got it wrong." But yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I edit this video, I'm going to put like lots of the nice vocabulary up there and the subtitles below. But
Mhm,
I'll just kind of quickly talk you through some of the other good and not so good vocabulary and language that you
mhm,
use. So we had you said I'm the one who sings in front of them. I would just change that to I'm the type of person who. So I'm the type of person who sings in front of them, or the kind
mm,
of person. Um,
mm,
I noticed that's a phrase that I would hear very regularly in China, the one who. But I would just change that to the type of person who.
mm,
You said, not that much we sing together. I would just change that to we don't sing together so often. So
mm.
just kind of like choosing where the adverb sits in the sentence. You said
Yeah.
music is universal language. I would just put the there. Music is a universal language. You
Mm,
had cheer people up, which is great. That's a separable phrasal verb. Cheer people
mm,
up. Very nice. You also had lots of good vocabulary, things like to be in a bad mood, so in a bad mood, and to be feeling down or like to be feeling low. Great, great language. You said I often take subway, but when we talk about subway, we there's usually only one in the city, so we say the subway. So I often
mm,
take the subway or the bus.
mm, mm.
So remember that for articles because you made that mistake a few times.
Yeah.
You said,
I'm
uh
I'm really bad with articles.
right, yeah. I think it's really hard. There's so many rules and there's so much to learn.
Uh-huh.
Mm. No, I mean your articles in general are good, but things like the subway, pretty important.
Mhm.
I like that you said from time to time. Very nice. Um,
Learn from kids.
yeah,
Learn from kids. Like kids
right.
always use this one from time to time.
Really? Oh, great. Oh, he'll be thrilled to hear that. I'll mention that to him. Yeah, hopefully he'll watch this video. Um, you also said when I was a child, I usually. But if we're talking
Uh-huh.
about past, I would say used to. When I was a child, I used to go
Okay.
to school every day. And again, you said we don't have subway, but we don't have a subway system.
Mhm.
Um, you said Chinese economy develop really fast. I would say the Chinese economy, because there's just one,
Mhm. Mhm.
develops really. I'd probably say quickly, developed really quickly, or
Mhm.
has developed really quickly, like up until now.
Mhm.
Any questions about that? Or I'll just put up our part two notes.
No question.
Okay. So in part two, I liked things like I'd like to talk, like just introducing Jose. Was it his name was Jose, right, or Jose?
Yeah, Jose.
Okay. You said I knew him. I would just say I met him. So the first time when you get to know someone is when you
Mhm.
meet them. So just
Mm.
know is more of a state and meet is more of an action. So I met him 2 years ago, or I met him 5 years ago.
Okay. So knew him is like you knew a famous person like through a TV or an interview, something like that.
Yeah, but even with like a famous person, you'd say like I found out about him. It's more that like to know someone is like a state. So it's more like
Oh,
I know many people in China.
okay.
Or like 2 years ago when I lived in China, I met many Chinese people. So
Mhm,
if you're talking about the specific point in time in the past, we usually use meet. And if you're talking about a state, then we
mhm,
usually use know.
okay.
So you said having a road trip, but I would just say to be on a road trip. And then the pronunciation of the top of the country is the northern part of the country.
Northern.
Northern.
Uh, sorry, where did I pronounce it wrong? Like before, did you still remember?
Yeah, you said something like no, northern.
Northern? Northern, did I say?
Northern. Yeah, it's quite hard to get that R sound in northern.
Northern, yeah.
Northern part of the country. And you said he was looking for travel mate. So you forgot the article. He was looking for a travel mate.
Mm,
My first impression is, but it should be was because it was the past. Um, he is the driver, but he was the driver because you're talking about the
mm,
past again. So definitely for
yeah.
part 2, it's pretty important to be focusing in on using the tenses correctly because you're telling a story about the past. I love
Yeah.
this. He came up with brilliant games. So perfect phrasal verb there. You said another thing special about him. I would just change the order to another special thing about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get the part 3 notes now as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you said customs and culture. I wrote idioms, but it's not an idiom, it's a collocation. Immerse in the culture, very nice language. Um, really, really nice. So like immediately it showed that you had lots of very high level vocabulary here. You said the
Mm,
biggest reason I can come up with, um, very nice for that's really nice language for fluency and coherence, a very good discourse marker. I also liked, especially in my culture, and then you emphasize the my, so high score for pronunciation.
mm-hmm.
You said this making mistakes is embarrassed, but it would be embarrassing.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
remember with adjectives, if something makes you feel away, then we put an ing. So it is
Mhm.
tiring, it makes me feel tired. It is boring,
Mhm.
it makes me feel bored.
Yeah.
You sometimes said customers when you wanted to say customs.
Yeah. Oh, this is a mistake my students made before, and I
Right.
correct them, and then I
Uh,
made the same mistake.
well, maybe also because your students make that mistake, then it's easier for you to make it because it's already in your head. I used to do that as
Uh,
well. When I was teaching in Spain, people always used to say do mistakes, and I started saying do mistakes. Of course, it should be make mistakes.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when you're teaching, you sometimes they learn the correct language from you, but you also learn some mistakes from the difficult.
Yes. And I like the embarrassed and embarrassing. That's one language point I teach as well. But for me to use it, also make mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's very natural.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said in Spring Festival, we gave lucky money to children, but it would just be to child. I would just change that to
Mm-hmm.
we give lucky money to children because it's a
Mm-hmm.
regular action. I
Mm-hmm.
really liked to some extent protect and preserve, very nice. Smaller languages which are spoken, very nice grammar. Raise awareness, wonderful collocation. That needs money, I would just change to requires money, and
Mm-hmm.
provide funds, which is just great language.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited about you doing your speaking test coming up. You've got 1 month, right, to prepare?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
And I think I have the confidence to do it well. It's just it depends on my like what am I going to be my mental state where at the test day. I try to not to be too nervous, and I think if I'm not too nervous, I think I can do it good.
Yeah, like this, you did very well. I mean, 7.5 is an incredibly high score.
Hmm.
Good luck. I'll have my fingers crossed for you. Um,
Thanks.
yeah. So what I'll do, May, is I'll send you this video now so you've got it as a
Mhm.
record before your test.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Real pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you too. Thank you for giving me so many advice.
My
And
pleasure.
so many advices or so much.
So much advice.
So much advices. Yeah.
Another S. So much advice. Uncountable.
Oh yeah, it's non-countable. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for giving me so much advice.
It's my pleasure, May. Have a wonderful day.
You too. You too.